Hi guys, how's it going and welcome back to my channel. Today we're making a tier list as promised ever since we reacted to Sprangle's video. I'll put his channel up on the screen so you guys can see who I'm talking about. And yeah, I'm doing my tier list for Pokemon Unite. Now, take this with a grain of salt because I'm obviously not the best player in the world at this game. However, I've been playing this game since release at different periods of time, taking breaks here and there. However, I have experienced the meta developing throughout the months, year plus, since this game has been out. Correct me if I'm wrong, but nonetheless, these are the criteria in which we are going to rank them. D tier is obvious here. It needs fixes. So the Pokemon needs fixes. There's obvious problems with the Pokemon. It doesn't do as well. Now, mind you, I'm going to tell you guys this right now. Mind you, this tier list is for the past update up until the beginning of this update. So right before Mew has come out. Now, I have played Mew a little bit, and I can say it's pretty good. But those Pokemon won't be ranked on this list because I will be making a separate tier list probably within a month for when Pinsir, Scizor, and Dodrio does come out, and I will be ranking Mew as well. So, just disclaimer here, this is going to be my tier list for the past, and this is going to be a platform we're going to use for the future tier lists. So, nonetheless, let's get right into it. D tier needs fixes. C tier, it's okay, but so many other Pokemon does its job better. B tier, it's a solid pick. It doesn't excel a whole lot, but is a pretty good pick. You're not upset if somebody has this on your team. Great is a Pokemon that does a really good job at something, though it's lacking a little bit. It might need a strong team comp to work, or it's good at solo maining, but not really good at zoning correctly. It might have a few problems. Excellent is pretty much like the star players of a team, with the exception of they're kind of like the A team, right? And then we have in S tier the Olympic team, you know what I mean? So when it comes down to it, the A plus team or the A plus team, the A plus tier is one of those Pokemon that does really well at its job, though there's Pokemon that are just a little bit better. The S tier players are kind of the Pokemon that really, when they're really good against you and you're playing against a team that's using these, or you're using these Pokemon, the team feels unstoppable just because of this one Pokemon. Now, you guys probably are thinking some of the Pokemon already that fit this category. Like, if you see this Pokemon on a team, it makes the team 50% better. That's how good S tier Pokemon are. And of course, the most game-changing Pokemon, I believe, will be placed here. So we'll be doing this last, but nonetheless, let's get right into it. So Snorlax is in an interesting spot. Snorlax normally gets placed fairly high on a list. I think Snorlax is actually a great pick for most teams. However, I do feel like it lacks some offensive presence that other defenders have. However, I don't ever feel like Snorlax is a hindrance for our team. I do feel like there's better options. So I'm going to place Snorlax starting in B tier. I think B tier is a fairly safe option for him. Obviously, he has access to some really great moves. Everyone uses the slam move. Everybody, or not everybody, but a lot of people put other Pokemon to sleep. It's a pretty annoying presence, and it can heal itself. However, sometimes there's a little bit of a learning curve. If you dive in too much with Snorlax, you really have a hard time with your mobility, so eject buttons is almost essential when you play this character. However, it's not one of those characters that when it's on a team, it really feels like you're going to win the game or you have a stronger presence in the game. It just feels like another Pokemon on your team that kind of fills a role. It doesn't really hold so much significance, but you can see that if somebody's playing Snorlax, you can reliably predict how they're going to play and what they can do. there's not really too many question marks, and that's why I think it's a pretty solid pick. The next one here, we're just going to rifle off a few that we know off the top of our head. Mr. Mime. So Mr. Mime's an interesting one. I think Mr. Mime belongs in B tier because it holds an interesting position as a support character. However, it does so in the aspects of like light shields, and shields in general. So it's like a very good spacious character. Also, it supports your characters. I think it has some pretty interesting abilities that actually boost other stats of other Pokemon around it. So it's really, really good in team fights. Solo is where it kind of like dwindles a little bit comparatively to other support characters, in which I will talk about as we move forward. However, I think Mr. Mime could be picked up in the future by some really great players, and we've already seen it already. And I think that Mr. Mime has a good presence when it's being played by a good player. However, I think it kind of dwindles, like I said, when the average person picks it up and doesn't really know how to play Mr. Mime. So that's why I think it's kind of a solid pick as a support character. But again, it's not a great pick. There's a lot of other support characters that I would pick over it and I would like to see on my team over it. However, it's never a bad pick. I do think in the future, though, it could go up to A tier. However, due to the lack of representation, I think it's currently a B tier. Next on the list is our boy Venusaur. Venusaur, honestly, I could see Venusaur being an A+ tier, though I'm not exactly sure. I think it's kind of like the baseline. I feel like Venusaur has very, very short cooldowns, very, very good mobility, very, very good at attacking and confirming kills. Not very much to say about Venusaur. I feel like a lot of people know exactly what he does. He goes in there, and it's not a very hard character to perform well with. So I think it's a very good character to pick up if you're a brand new player. So make sure to pick up Venusaur if you like a ranged attacker. Even if you're closing the distance, I feel like it does promote a healthy game state too. I don't think it has too much of an oppressive presence in the game, but like I said, I think it's a very, very strong character. Next on the list is Gardevoir. Now, Gardevoir is an interesting one because I often go back and forth between Gardevoir. Now, some people put Gardevoir in A+ tier, and I think Gardevoir does have that potential. I think Gardevoir is a very good Pokemon. It does what it does. It needs to do. It does what it needs to do, sorry. And I think that when you're playing Gardevoir, you can kind of like struggle early on, or at least in the Zapdos map, you struggled early on just because you couldn't really get that XP that you really needed. But in this new map, I'm sure that Gardevoir will propel to greater heights if used correctly by some really good players. It's never a bad Pokemon, and I'm actually always happy to see a Gardevoir on my team. I never feel like I'm hindered. Anything in like C tier and D tier, you can really feel like, oh, they chose this Pokemon, they better be good with them, or else it's a big hindrance. But I feel like Gardevoir actually has a pretty solid presence when it's in the mid to late game, and especially on the newer maps. I think you'll see that kind of branching into a little bit of the early game. So I think Gardevoir holds quite a strong presence, and I think both sets for Gardevoir is actually pretty decent to use. So that's why I think Gardevoir belongs in the great category. Next on the list is Gengar. Now, people are going to probably wonder why I haven't put him in A+ tier. I think he belongs at high A tier or low A+ tier, to be honest. I'm going to put him in high A tier for right now. I might change it at near the end of this video, but Gengar has great mobility. It has like invulnerability for a little while, and it can get in, get out, do massive damage, and be a powerhouse for a small amount of time based around burst damage. However, the problem with Gengar, again, he's a very squishy character. He really, like, if you have to know how to use him correctly, or you're jumping in and you die very frequently with this character. So you have to make sure that you're pretty adept at knowing the distance between you and the opposing team when you're attacking. So I think Gengar has kind of a skill ceiling. Though when you do see the skill ceiling be utilized correctly, he can very very easily look like a high A tier or at least an A plus tier character, and that's why I think he's either high A tier or A plus tier, or at the very end of A plus tier. So for right now, I'll put him in A plus tier. I think he's probably at the end of A plus, maybe at the top of A tier, but nonetheless, that's where I believe Gengar is. Next one is our boy Absol. Now I really like Absol. I'm actually an Absol main when I do solo queue. I think Absol is a fantastic Pokemon. It goes in there, does what it needs to do. It has a lot of strengths, especially on the Zapdos map. It really, really propels in the early to mid game. It out XPs most of the cast early on. It can confirm kills super, super early on. You can really get some quick and easy in and outs with Absol. Also, you punish people for doing damage to you because of Sucker Punch if you run that build. Like, there's so much there that you can utilize. If you want to use a more range-focused Pokemon, you can like moveset. You can also use the other move. I think it's Psychic Cut, which allows you to not chase, but like get at running away. Get at attack Pokemon that are running away from you, or allows you to backpedal and still attack at a range. So there's like two different builds with him that you can really do well with either one of them. I'm actually using the Sucker Punch build. I really really like it. The reason why he's not higher up is because obviously he did get some nerfs, and honestly he got a lot of nerfs, but he shouldn't have got nerfed as hard as he did. Honestly, people will put him in B tier. I think he's obviously an A tier Pokemon. I think he does the job well. When people see Absol, they run. They don't normally run at him. Honestly, if you're playing him well and you're fed, you can really like wipe a whole team. You can 1v4, 1v3 teams if you're doing really, really well as Absol early on. And even like in the mid game, you can really push for that extra advantage. However, in the end game, that's where he kind of falls off little by little. But nonetheless, I still think is such a great Pokemon, such a great pick. However, there is a little bit of a skill ceiling, but I think it's worth it if you know how to play him correctly. Next on the list is Garchomp. Let's not even joke about it. Garchomp is not that great. Garchomp needs to be better. He needs fixes, man. Everybody wants Garchomp to be good. This is such an iconic Pokemon. People would we would like to see a Garchomp up here, you know what I mean? Or at least here. Like when you look at such a scary looking Pokemon, you would expect that he would be pretty high on the list. And for a Pokemon that costs 10,000, it's definitely not worth it. There's so many better Pokemon that fill its role. It has a nice move, like catching up ability that it can like jump ahead and kill a Pokemon that's running away from it. That's very good, but the damage output just isn't there. The damage output just isn't there. The moves aren't that great, and honestly, apart from that like catching up move, the mobility on it is kind of leaves a lot to be desired. And honestly, it only really shines late in the game, and most of the time, if you're going endgame for endgame, Tyranitar is a better pick. So, or even Dragonite's a better pick than our boy Garchomp. And what makes him even worse than some of the B tiers too is like he doesn't provide anything early game, right? Snorlax is still Snorlax early game. Mr. Mime is still Mr. Mime early game. Garchomp ain't shit early game, chat. And I mean that 100%. So, nonetheless, Garchomp is down here for that very, very reason. I think everybody knows that this Pokemon is going to be sitting here, and I think that is Espeon. Honestly, Espeon needs fixes. I don't even, Espeon needs fixes, but is still okay. You know what I mean? Like, high D tier. You know what I mean? Like, Espeon needs fixes. It needs to be bolstered even more than it already is. There's a lot of creative ways they could go about it. It has a lot of the potential that Gardevoir already has, but it just utilizes it so poorly as a Pokemon. You know what I mean? Like, it essentially should be able to do the same things as Gardevoir, but the thing is, it doesn't have the damage output. It, again, Confusion's kind of nice, but it doesn't, like, that doesn't save the Pokemon. It plateaus really quickly. Early games, it's nice, like all Eevees, but again, late game, it really falls off. It doesn't have the travel speed that Gardevoir moves at. It doesn't have the honestly, the thing is with Espeon, the move sets that's going on with Espeon versus Gardevoir. Gardevoir's good with both move sets. Realistically, Espeon's kind of only good with one, and the one move set isn't even that great. So, to be honest, that's why I think Espeon's in an okay tier. You could probably even put it in D tier because it needs fixes. But to be honest, you could get away with using this, but I never want this on my team over, for, let's say, Gardevoir, because Gardevoir just does a better job. Now, let's go and let's do one that's in S tier. Okay, obviously, S tier, Blissey. Blissey's, like I said, it's the best of the best support characters in the game. Or at least it... So here's the thing. S tier characters, they fill multiple roles, right? Blissey is a support character that feels like a defender. You know what I mean? Or it's a defender that feels like a support character. Like, it fills two roles on a team. If you're missing both a defender and a support character, you can pick Blissey and you can solve both of those issues with one character. And the fact that this character heals so much makes your team so resilient to everything in the game. Like, your opponents can use 2-3 ultimates. If you have a Blissey around, your team can't die. Like, if they're utilizing their Blissey correctly, your team's not dying. Blissey can solo, can like stay alive versus 1v2s as a solo. It can stay alive versus 1v3s if they're not using ultimates. If you're 2v4ing, you and your opponent, you and your teammate can stay alive and hold lane alone. Like, Blissey has so much potential, and also, like, both sets are really, really strong with Blissey. It depends on your team comp, obviously, but when you see Blissey on a team, it infinitely makes that team more scarier and ups their potential by like 50 or 60%. So that's why I think, obviously, Blissey is an S tier character. Everybody knew it. I might as well have just done it right away. That's why I believe S tier goes to Blissey for sure. There's going to be many more, but nonetheless, Blissey for sure. Another one on the list, I will say, is Zoroark. Now, people are going to wonder why I don't put Zoroark in B tier. Zoroark has an interesting placement for me. I don't see very many good Zoroarks, and the reason why is because I find that Gengars tend to be more prevalent than Zoroark, and Zoroark is a good Pokemon, or at least it used to be insane. Same as Absol, right? Absol and Zoroark used to be like best characters in the game, you know what I mean? But obviously with nerfs and everything, it caused these Pokemon to fall from grace. Now, out of these two, which one got nerfed harder? Obviously Absol. However, I think the thing is with Zoroark, the way the character's played is you're jumping in, you're killing, then you're jumping out. Now, Gengar does that way better. Absol moves very quickly, gets in there, gets out, and also can ricochet damage with Sucker Punch. So I think it plays into the kind of play style that's necessary. Zoroark kind of has the very close range approach where it has to stay to do consistent damage. Sometimes if you play the burst build, you can get away with ending a team. Now, Zoroark is a good Pokemon. I don't think it's the best Pokemon. I don't even know if it's a solid Pokemon because I know, hot take here, I do think the next Pokemon, I think Talonflame is better than Zoroark. Again, the reason why I believe this is Zoroark and Talonflame do two separate things. And people are going to look at this and be like, wow, Zoroark's C tier, what the hell? This is so trash. But hear me out, okay? Zoroark does a lot of damage, right? If used correctly. But again, what is he? very, very squishy, right? A very, very squishy character who gets outclassed by a large percentage of the cast, especially when you're talking about early, mid game, and late game. There's certain key choke points that he does get better at throughout the game. So, for instance, really, really early on, he gets kind of outclassed, but at like level 5, level 6 ish, he starts to really perform at a high level. I think he's an okay character. I don't know if, like I said, I don't know if I would want Zora on my team if I were, like I said, building an ideal team. I don't know if I'd pick Zora over Absol or Gengar. Now, Talonflame, like I said, Talonflame, I believe, is in a very interesting spot. Some people think Talonflame really sucks because of all the nerfs, like I said. When people see nerfs to a character, they're like, wow, suddenly he's trash. He's the worst thing ever. He's fallen from grace. I actually think Talonflame's better than Zora for these reasons. Talonflame used to be able to jump into teams and wipe teams off the map, right? Talonflames, because it was put in check, has a little bit of a different role now, and I think it actually plays this role a lot better. People think that Talonflame should be able to jump into any group of Pokemon and just delete their entire team. Because it doesn't do as much damage now, it does do something that the other speedsters don't really do, and that's like the janitor role, right? So when your team's in a team fight and the opponent starts to pull backpedal, Talonflame's your guy. Talonflame's your Pokemon that goes ahead, gets those kill confirms, wipes up and cleans up the mess of the arena, and allows for your team to get those easy points. And I think Talonflame's mobility, honestly, that's the real reason why Talonflame's in B tier. It's Talonflame's mobility to catch up to almost every Pokemon in the game and get out and kill and gain those kill confirms. I really think Talonflame is a solid Pokemon. I think it's better than Zoroark. It might be a hot take, but nonetheless, that's what I believe. Next one on the list is Crustle. Crustle could easily be in B tier, and maybe I'll put him in B tier afterwards. Crustle's really annoying because, again, sometimes his crits are really strong. Sometimes they're played as a really they're playing a big defender role in the team comp that you're going against. And sometimes that wall that gets created sometimes outright wins. Like wins the team the opposing team a free exchange, and your opponents just die because you have a lot of burst damage on your team opposed to consistent damage. However, Crustle alone struggles with dealing with enemies, and I think that's where its hindrance really lies. I think a lot of people will look at this and say, oh, what do you mean Crustle can obviously delete people, blah, 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 blah. I think he can, and that's why I think he's top of C tier. I just don't think it's consistent enough comparative to other type of defenders. And I'll explain that a little bit more in our next Pokemon, Blastoise. Next on the list is Blastoise. Now, it's either between B and A. I think he's probably an A tier character. I think he's a little better than Snorlax. Sometimes on par with Snorlax. Yeah, I could see him in B tier, actually. Maybe a little bit better than Snorlax. Maybe not essentially getting to A tier. Maybe in the right hands he gets to A tier. I don't know. I kind of have like a back and forth with him. It kind of looks nice. Let's put him in A tier. So, very, very good move set. Very, very strong defense. Great AoE and good in team fights. He does all the jobs that needs to be done as a defender. I think when it comes down to defenders, he's better than Snorlax, like I said, by a slight margin, but I think that's kind of a coin toss depending on what you believe as a character or as a player. So I think, obviously, I think Snorlax is still very good. He's a solid pick, but I much rather have the utility of like the long range and pushback that Surf brings to the team, and that Blastoise actually has. So that's why I think he's an A tier character. Next on the list, I think, is Lucario. I think Lucario's an A plus tier, A plus character. I think he's a very, very good character. Obviously received nerfs as well. Most of these characters have at one point or another. It's held its own for such a long time. It's an offensive boss, very good defensively too. Can hold lane well, can jungle well. Has a really good ultimate if used correctly, good mobility. Like, realistically, there's not much else to say about this. Obviously, again, the damage output has been reduced as of late, but it's still a good Pokemon. I don't think generally nobody will say like, oh, he belongs in B tier. You know what I mean? I think most of the consensus surrounding Lucario is he's at least A tier, maybe A plus tier, and I tend to believe that he's more so A plus than A tier. Next on the list is Greninja. I think Greninja's really good. I think he's probably A plus. I think he's a little bit. I think he's in the A plus category. I don't know how high he is in the A plus category, but he has great burst damage, great mobility, really good team fights, really good solo fights, good solo pick when you're solo queuing if you're playing him correctly. Both of his builds are pretty decent if you use them correctly, and he can jungle well. Like, there's really not much to say about him. However, I think there's a few characters that does his position a little bit better, and I'll explain those as we go. Next on the list is Charizard. Charizard's decent. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. Charizard's decent. I think of the three starters, I think Charizard actually performs at like the lowest level. The reason for that is he gets killed or KO'd so easily. His ultimate gets stun canceled. Like, it really feels bad when you are a Charizard main, and the plethora of stuns, freezes, all of these things that happen. You're about to pop your ult, then you get hit with these stuns. However, when you resolve your ultimate, Charizard's really good. When you have a good offensive presence with Charizard, you're pushing, you're moving with the team, he's really good. He's like a pretty good character. But I think, like, generally speaking, if you have to put him in A tier, I think it's more so because of the player playing him. Most characters do counter him. Like I said, he really dies to burst damage. He does not have any HP pool at all. And I think a lot of the times you'll see teams really countering him just with one Pokemon, right? Sometimes he has the better of the one-on-one exchanges. However, not too many times do you see a Charizard 1v2ing, 1v3ing consistently without being checked by the opposing team's like burst damage dealers, and that's why I think he's kind of a B tier character. I feel like they could raise him up a little bit. I feel like he could use some improvements here and there, but he's a solid pick. Like I said, he's not bad. I just think some of the other characters are better at the job. I think Gardevoir's a better pick than Charizard. Like I said, I think any character above him is really better than Charizard. But yeah, that's what I think about Charizard. Cinderace, Cinderace is strong A tier. I think A plus tier. I think Cinderace is probably the better Charizard. I think that's not even debatable. I think Cinderace holds a much higher ceiling. So at the end of the game, the best Charizard versus the best Cinderace, I think the Cinderace always wins. I think most of the time, when you have a Cinderace on your team versus a Charizard, this Cinderace has a more team-orientated view. So, for instance, when you have a Cinderace supporting you, you feel that you are in a dominant position. But when you have a Charizard supporting you, you feel that the Charizard can get KO'd very, very easily. However, Cinderace is going to get a buff when it comes down to the new map. He's going to be able to level up earlier. He's going to get a little bit stronger, a little bit faster. So characters like Charizard that used to struggle early on also get that buff. But again, that also means late game becomes closer to mid game, and mid game becomes closer to early game, which means if your character's only good in early to mid game and not as great in end game, you have less time to perform at your best or your peak. So that's why I think a character like Cinderace, which does get better at mid game and end game, it becomes stronger later. And we've already seen its success at like regionals and stuff like that. Like you'll see like top players use Cinderace, and it's almost unstoppable at the end of the match. Again, the ultimate's pretty good. There's one really good build. Obviously, people use like different builds with it, but there's one really good build with it. And like I said, I think Cinderace is an absolute godsend of a Pokemon. I think it's a really good Pokemon. I don't think it needs any buffs. Like realistically, I think it's good where it is. I think it's excellent where it is. It could maybe use a nerf, but I think it's in a really good spot. Next is Eldegoss. I think Eldegoss is A tier. People are gonna freak out at me here. I think it honestly, I think Eldegoss belongs in A plus tier. People are gonna get mad at me about this, but it's neither here nor there. The one reason why Eldegoss is A plus tier for me, or yeah, A plus tier, maybe high, let's go high A tier. The reason why Eldegoss is A tier, not S tier, is because Blissey exists. The reason why Blissey exists pretty much nullifies the use of Eldegoss, but that doesn't mean Eldegoss isn't good. It's just the usage that Eldegoss was used for is better suited in another Pokemon. However, that doesn't mean Eldegoss isn't good in a team comp, right? If Blissey, for whatever reason, got quote-unquote banned from a tournament, right? Eldegoss would be S tier. Eldegoss would be S tier by default because healing is so important. Having that support character is a very good benefit to a team. Helps your team pretty much become unkillable. Also, it does some crazy damage, which I think it has more damage potential over Blissey. And that's why I think, generally speaking, I understand why Blissey exists, and that's why it has to be lower than S tier. But I do think it's at least A tier. It could be A plus tier, but it's not a hard Pokemon to use. It does a lot of damage, and it heals your team. Not much more to say about that. Cramorant. Oh, Cramorant. I don't like Cramorant. I don't like going against Cramorant. I think Cramorant's a stupid Pokemon. I think it needs a nerf. I think the fact that it can shoot you across the map with three spitball things, like, and it kills you, like, you know what like, this Pokemon's kill potential is so high that it makes it almost impossible not to notice this Pokemon on the map. You can kill from a very far range. Ultimate's very good. It has very oppressive presence. It's literally the better Decidueye. Decidueye literally strives to be everything that this Pokemon is. Like, I think when it comes down to a ranged attacker, this Pokemon is kind of like the go-to. As long as you're trying to prioritize damage. However, if you're trying to prioritize like a support character, he does not fill that role. And however, I do think he does his job the best as a ranged attacker. I think he might be the best or one of the best ranged attacker in the game, and that's why I think he has to go at least at S tier, maybe A plus tier, but it's because of his damage output, and man, is it ever a threat when you're facing this, especially when it's mid to late game. He gets so strong, so quick, and it's just impossible to deal with him, especially if he's supported by somebody like Blissey or somebody who's a defender or can put up walls. Him and Mr. Mime work good together. Like, there's just like a lot of team comps surrounding Cramorant that make him very powerful. Next on the list is Pikachu. Pikachu's an interesting one. Pikachu's a pretty solid pick. I think Pikachu actually holds like a lot of strong. I feel like Pikachu's great. I feel like Pikachu's a great Pokemon in Pokemon Unite. He has really strong, high burst damage, gets in and gets out kills. Early game, he has a stun. Like, very, very good early game, late game, mid game, and even not too bad late game. His ultimate's really, really good, though the ultimate thing's going to get changed in the new update that just happened with, like, the map and everything. But I do think he is a very strong Pokemon. He could probably get a buff, to be honest. And and honestly, the thing is, he doesn't feel unfair going against. However, a really good Pikachu can convince me that he's high A tier. I don't know if he'll ever be A plus tier unless he gets a crazy buff, but he is a very, very good Pokemon, and I think that people should pick up Pikachu if they have the opportunity. I understand like Pikachu's like the poster child of Pokemon, but I feel like they really did a good job with him. Unlike Charizard here, just very underwhelming Pokemon comparatively. My favorite Pokemon to play on a team, and that is Ninetales. I'm having a lot of fun with Ninetales. I think Ninetales is just a really great Pokemon in general. I think Ninetales holds a lot of strong potential as a ranged attacker, in that it's one of the only ranged attackers that I can think of, at least off the top of my head, that actually feels like a support character. So what I mean by that is like, so Aurora Veil and Dazzling Gleam is just such a strong combo. Like, being able to jump into a circle, do plus damage, reduce your damage taken, become faster, and stun an opponent when you use the move is like so crazy, and heal a little bit. Like, I don't know, it has one of the best supporting moves in the game, and also it does really good damage for what it does, and it freezes the opponent. Like, I don't know what else you need from this Pokemon. I think the thing is, when it comes down to a Pokemon like this, it again, it's pretty good defensively. It can hold circle against two enemies, and its ultimate's kind of where it like falters a little bit. It freezes opponents in a circle. It does a pretty decent amount of damage burst wise. I just think the thing is, when it comes down to like its ultimate, it could have been better. Again, there could be a little bit more offensive presence, but I feel like as the character grows and develops, you kind of rely on your teammates with that, and that's why I think it's an excellent A tier candidate. Next on the list is Wigglytuff. I think Wigglytuff's not great. I think Wigglytuff used to be good. Its ultimate used to be good. I think Wigglytuff just lacks something. Rollout's going to be cool. It's going to make it better in the future, but I just think it's really an underwhelming Pokemon. There's other Pokemon that does its job, and that's pretty much all I want to say about that one. Next on the list is Slowbro. I think Slowbro is probably the best defender in the game. If Blissy's a support character, okay, I don't count that, but I'm saying I think Slowbro's so good. I think he's the one that you have to watch out for. Has access to Scald, has access to Surf, telekinesis. Like, his ultimate's really good, super good in team fights. Like, there's nothing wrong with Slowbro, and I think Slowbro is one of those characters that I'm very happy is on this list, and doing well as a Slowbro is something that all like your entire team can really appreciate, because it makes threats on your opponent's team become negligible. So he can stun the opposing burst damage user, and then your opponents just kill them your opponents. Your team just kills the opponent very, very quickly, because again, burst damage users typically have low HP pools, dies really quickly, and Slowbro can really tank a lot of damage. It pretty much does everything you need your defender to do, and then some, and that's why I think it's an A plus tier. It could probably be an S tier, to be honest, but honestly, let's put him at high A tier. I think he's one of the best characters in the entire game. Next, we have Machamp. I think Machamp's probably high A tier. A lot of people would probably disagree with me. He does a lot of damage, obviously very good, but he just gets bodied by speedsters. Like, speedsters just collapse on him late game, and he just can't do anything about it. Like, his HP pool is just not there. However, if you're playing the long game, Machamp destroys defenders. Deletes defenders. He obviously gets better when you have a team around you and you're fighting team v team. He gets really, really strong, really, really good, does a lot of damage quickly, but is consistent, is like still a low amount of damage that it's still considered consistent damage. So I think the thing is with Machamp, a lot of people would put Machamp higher than Lucario. I just think that when you see a Machamp, most of the time you don't think, man, I really need to pick this character up. I think most of the time it's just the character tends to not be played at such a high level. Most of the time, the players playing Machamp, they're playing them as if you're playing a normal character, but really Machamp, you want to get in there, do some damage, stick with your team, and pull back, push forward, pull back, push forward. And I don't think that he's as good as someone like Lucario. I think Lucario has better mobility, better move sets, and can run all lanes. Where I think Machopp's better with a team where Lucario can play pretty much solo a lot better, I think. Again, my own opinion, but nonetheless, that's why I think Machamp's high A tier, not A plus tier. Next on the list is Decidueye. Decidueye is a good Pokemon. Decidueye. Decidueye is a good Pokemon. I think Decidueye. It's not the best Pokemon in the game, but it's solid. It's gonna go in there. It's gonna do a lot of damage. Stay at a range. As long as it stays at, if this thing could stay at a range, it could be an A plus tier. You know what I mean? But the problem is when other Pokemon get close and jump on it and swing, like players who play Absol and Gengar and Greninja, really they delete this character out of existence. Even Talonflame deletes this character out of existence, and like I said, Cramorant and Cinderace kind of do just like a better job than what Decidueye does, but I think generally speaking, Decidueye does hold a consistent amount of damage at a long range. As long as you're with a good team, I think you will do well as a Decidueye. Next on the list is our boy, Greedent. Yeah, Greedent's very good. Fast, annoying, heals itself, gets points out of nowheres, and can travel across the map whenever it wants. Can be used as a solo main, can be used as a team comp, like within a team comp. It can delete teams at the mid to late game stages. Like, there's not much to say about this Pokemon, just a very good Pokemon in general. I think it might be, probably around here. Deletes Pokemon, very, very good. Next on the list is Dredragon. Dredragon's a good Pokemon again. I think lots of damage, not very fast, holds its own. I'm not very sure on its team comps surrounding it because none of my friends who play with me main this character at all. I think the thing with this Pokemon specifically is there's not a lot of attention on it. Not a lot of players play it, but everybody I seem to have talked to about this before I did the tier list thinks it's a pretty decent Pokemon. I just think it just gets overshined. Like, for instance, I think Venusaur is better than this Pokemon. I think, obviously, Slowbro is better than this Pokemon. I think, like, you could even play... There's probably even a world where, like, you could play the role of Dredragon. Maybe I'm thinking of a different Pokemon. Maybe I'm not even saying his name right. Where Machop can do the same job as him, but just better. But I think he's a solid pick. I'm not like upset when somebody picks him. I think he's like pretty good. Next on the list is I think Mamoswine. I think Mamoswine's just outclassed right now. I think we need to be honest with ourselves. He is outclassed. He needs some fixes. But I think he's still better than Crustle. I think generally speaking, Crustle is one of the only Pokemon that like I think of that like pairs like pretty much similarly to Mamoswine, and they're like in the same position. So like what I mean by that is like their power level feels similar. Good mobility, gets some kills. I don't think necessarily it's the best at its job, and I think like any Pokemon ahead of it kind of does its job a little bit better than it, and I think it struggles with kill confirms, especially late game, mid game as well, and I think it does decently like early mid game. I think it's fine, and I think it might get better, might get a boost with the new map that's coming out. But generally speaking, I don't know. I don't really know if this Pokemon's something that I'd tell people to main or not. So that's kind of my position on that. Buzzwole, I think Buzzwole needs rework. I think like obviously it's gonna get some buffs, but I think Buzzwole is one of those Pokemon that does well. It's good, but it should have been better than what it was when it came to the game. I think people thought it was really good, but then they realized early game it sucks. Mid game it sucks. Late game, if you are grinding XP, this thing is the like easily goes to like A plus tier. It feels like an A plus character. But the problem is there's no getting around the fact that it sucks early game. Like unless you get an XP advantage over your opponents, other Pokemon are just out damaging it and it outright killing it almost right away. However, if they fix this, and maybe the new map with all the XP changes and stuff will make this Pokemon a lot better, I think that this Pokemon could easily go to B tier. Now, in my next tier list, I might put him up, but we'll see if the new map makes that much of a difference. But right now, I really think his early game needs a tweak. Something needs a tweak early game for him to make a little bit more of a presence. But yeah, nonetheless, I think that's where he kind of fits. All right. Serena, S tier, one of the best characters in the game. I don't think I have to explain this. Serena literally slays an entire team. Literally outright slays an entire team. It can jump in there. The triple axle kick can literally like sweep up shop. Like you can use every build on Serena and still expect to do well. The only problem with Serena a little bit is like early game kind of sucks, but like mid game and late game, like Serena can be the reason why you win a game. So that's why I think Serena belongs up there. I think Azumarill is high C tier, maybe close to B tier. Kind of like an assassin character, kind of like a speedster character, but not really. Its damage output just isn't as much as you would like it to be, and also it's not as... it doesn't bring something to the table that other Pokemon don't already do. And it doesn't do anything better, you know what I mean? Like, if you're going to play the assassin type of build with this character, you might as well just play an assassin, you know what I mean? If you're going to play the more, like, all-rounded character, you might as well just play something like Dragonite or Tyranitar. There's really no reason to play... Like, Azu doesn't have a reason to play this character unless you just like this Pokemon. It's a decent character. I don't know if I would say it's like solid because it kind of doesn't really have like this linear strategy to it because you don't know like what role you're really filling, and the roles that it's filling, like I said, other Pokemon just do it better. So that's why I think it's high C tier. Next on the list is Dragonite. I think Dragonite's one of the best Pokemon in the game. I think he could be even game changing. I think Dragonite's like absolutely insane. I think he's crazy when it comes down to late game strategies. He can be he's another Pokemon that covers two different categories, right? He's an all-arounder that feels like a speedster when he dives in. So he covers two different categories. Blissey is a defender who feels like a supporter, or a supporter who feels like a defender. Serena is a all-arounder who feels like an assassin. This guy, he's an all-arounder or supporter who feels like an all-arounder. This guy's kind of just like the good damage dealer. So like, I don't know, maybe he moves down because he doesn't feel like a second role. But yeah, these three characters feel like really, really strong. Or four characters fill multiple roles, and I think that's why they're like S tier. Yeah, I think Sylveon's very, very good. Hyper Voice is very oppressive, very, very hard to deal with. Consistent damage, can hold a zone versus three Pokemon, so it can do 1v3s if you're consistent enough against the right type of individuals. 1v2s, Hyper Voice can keep people away very, 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 very good. I think when it comes down to Sylveon also has the other set where it's like the Flash Fire. Flash Fire's very, very strong. too, but Hyper Voice just being the more optimal way of playing it. I just think the evolutions are very good. I think the reason why the evolutions are so good is because early game they get an advantage over other Pokemon. They get their stuff really, really early, and like I said, they're I guess I didn't say this yet, but their ultimates make them really fast and pretty much able to chase down anybody and kill them. They have like a pseudo talent flame speed to them that they can catch up to anybody, kill anybody with a lot of damage. Now, Sylveon does the consistent damage in a match, where Glaceon does the burst damage. So both characters do pretty much the same thing, just in different ways. Glaceon being the burst damage type, and Sylveon being the consistent damage type. And I think that's why maybe Glaceon's actually A+ tier for that exact reason. Yeah, I think Glaceon becomes A+ tier for that exact reason. Just because burst damage I feel is kind of like the meta right now, and I feel like burst damage is a little bit better than consistent damage. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Next on the list is Trevenant. Trevenant I think is probably A+ tier, to be honest. I think Trevenant is one of those characters that feels like is a defender that feels like an all-arounder. It honestly feels Trevenant feels like Tyranitar. You know, it feels like you're playing a character just like Tyranitar. They just like rebranded Tyranitar, and I think Trevenant puts up like a pretty big offensive presence when you're playing against him. He really crowd controls really well. He's good when there's a lot of enemies around him. So him versus a team is a very favorable position. Like one of him versus two of the opponents, it's a very favorable position. I think generally speaking, Trevenant helps a team push forward on points. So if it's 2v2, Trevenant's team kind of has to watch out unless they're ranged attackers. I think he does kind of suffer against ranged attackers for that reason, because he kind of has to get involved in the fight. He has to push forward, and that's why I don't think he's an S tier character, but I can see him moving up the list of A tier. I don't think he's quite as good as Slowbro, but he does have such a presence. When played right, Trevenant feels like an offensive force. He feels like something that you have to respect when your enemies have him, and he's just so good. Next on the list is Aegislash. Aegislash is a good Pokemon. I don't know how strong I would say Aegislash is. I think maybe an A+ tier. I think maybe top of A is where Aegislash is. I think the reason why Aegislash is as strong as he is because Aegislash has a phenomenal endgame experience as well as a mid-game experience. He can really delete teams, but I think the problem with Aegislash, and the reason why I'm not putting him in A+ tier, is he requires enough skill to use him correctly when you're trying to delete opponents, that you need to be able to be aware of escaping the team. And when you're not with the team, when it's 1v2, he has a hard time staying alive against really high damage units. However, the problem with the opponent's team is normally when an Aegislash is really pushing on you, he really kills the ranged attackers, and that's why I think he's a really good Pokemon, at least at slaying the ranged attackers. And when you're like on a team with Aegislash, you feel pretty confident that he can handle his lane if one of his allies die. So they can like hold lane, obviously, until the allies respawn. You feel really confident with Aegislash on your team. Maybe high A+ tier. Yeah, I feel confident with Aegislash on my team. I feel pretty confident with Aegislash on my team that I can win the game, just because I feel like they can hold lane really well mid to late game, and I think him with like a pocket healer or a pocket support character like goes a long way. Next on the list is Delphox. I think Delphox I think Delphox probably belongs in A plus tier, to be honest. I think kind of a hidden gem. Kind of a hidden gem of like the meta. I don't think many people are like really paying attention to how good this Pokemon is. It's fire spin's really annoying to deal with. It's high damage potential. It has good mobility. It can deal damage early and it can deal damage late in the game, and it's going to get better with the new map. However, again, this is talking about like the Zapdos stuff. I just think this has a good enough arsenal of moves that you can pretty much mix and match any of the move sets and get a pretty strong Pokemon in general. And I think the thing is with this Pokemon too, you're never feeling like you're in danger, because again, all your moves are either stunning them, doing passive damage, doing loads of damage. So you can backpedal with this Pokemon very, very well without feeling that you're in too much danger. Also, you can jungle with this character very well too. You can push into your opponent's jungle and steal some of their jungle. Fairly safe as a character against, again, like a one-on-one jungle situation. Most of the time, this character can win. But again, kind of pales in comparison to like when up against Gengar. So again, sometimes you have to be a little bit careful, but nonetheless, it's still a very good Pokemon. Another Pokemon on the list I don't think needs much explaining. It's an all-arounder that feels like a defender. This is an all-arounder that here let's yeah. So this is an all-arounder that feels like a defender. This is an all-arounder that feels like a speedster. This is an all-arounder that feels like an assassin. This is a support character that feels like an all-arounder. This is Cramorant, and then this and then this is Blissey, who is a support character that feels like a defender, vice versa. So I don't think Tyranitar needs any explaining. Ancient powers nuts. Walks around, gets hit, damage is done to him, and then he does more damage because of it. Like, his ultimate literally wipes teams. Like, his ultimate can straight up 1v5 a team. Like, it's insane. Crazy for winning Zapdos. Absolutely nuts for winning Zapdos. Very, very unfair Pokemon. It feels like this Pokemon needs the nerfs that it's getting. Obviously a very strong Pokemon, and I'm very happy that this Pokemon is getting the nerfs that it needs, because it's a very impressive Pokemon, hard to beat, very hard to beat. One of those Pokemons that really elevate your team if you have it on. Really elevates your team if it's on your team. So yeah, Tyranitar, very, very good. And last but not least, Hoopa. Hoopa is the game-changing Pokemon that I've decided here. I think Hoopa in general, I think this Pokemon is just too crazy of a Pokemon. I think in general, Hoopa is one of those Pokemon that, if played correctly, is just so detrimental to the opposing team that they just can't get any points in. You can teleport your team from one side of the map to the other side of the map, as well as teleport your team back to heal them fully. Like, it's one of those characters that feels unfair when used correctly. However, if this character is not used to its fullest potential and is used badly, can really create a unfair game state and make it feel like your team's almost throwing, because again, the character's not easy to learn, right? It's a high skill ceiling. You need to know the game plan, and you need to know the game plan well. If somebody's not doing their job as Hoopa, you could have a Blissey on your team, Serena, Dragonite, and Greedent. As long, like, again, if Hoopa's throwing, you can lose the game, right? So you have to make sure that the skill ceiling for this character is very high. But when played correctly, the character's just so hard to beat. It makes teams that are not that good so much better, because they just teleport from one side of the map to the other side of the map, clean up shop, teleport back, clean up shop, go back and forth, back and forth. Oh, I'm low, I'm going to teleport back to base. Just a very, very strong, impressive character, and hard to beat in general. But nonetheless, I'm just going to take a look, see if I would change anything here. Maybe Espeon goes down here. I feel like Espeon needs some fixes. Da 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 da. Is there anything here? Maybe. Let me see. Maybe he goes up a little bit more. Does Cramorant go down? Yeah, I think this is the end list. I think after looking back, I think generally speaking, I think this is what the game's tier list would look like going into the new format, and I think generally speaking, this is what you can expect from teams. So they're all very, very good in their own way. Obviously, D tier, C tier, B tier, A tier, all of these characters, you can still play them, though they're better options. Doesn't mean you should stop playing them. Like I said, Mr. Mime could eventually go up to A plus tier if used correctly, but again, just currently speaking, I think this is where all the Pokemon are currently placed. Nonetheless, let me know in the comment section below. I know I talked a lot in this video. I was rambling on about different situations and all this stuff, but let me know what you guys think. Do you guys agree? Do you guys disagree? Sometimes I have a little bit of hot takes, like the Zeraora thing, but hey, flame me in the comment section below. We can have a conversation. Like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye!